Hi friends, my name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So I was watching the live stream. It's on the channel Suzi, SUZI 3D, and it's the title of the live stream is Unity Day, that's the hashtag, emergency public meeting and unveiling of nonviolent digital action plan. And this is, oh, by the way, you can see the lovely mountains in the distance there of the Huon Valley. So I live in Tasmania and I do what I can to, I'll leave a link, by the way, to that live stream that just finished. And it's calling to action people all over the world, the global community, to do something to support Assange. Recently there's been talk that there's an imminent sort of removal by the Ecuadorian embassy, by Ecuador, of Julian Assange and into the hands of the UK government. Excuse me. And that, of course, will mean that Julian Assange will be extradited to the United States, which will mean he'll be basically given a kangaroo court type trial, if that, and he'll be thrown into prison and left to rot, basically. And that's the best that one could hope for him, really, if the US gets their hand on him, which they intend to do. There's I think a secret indictment or something. There's something that they have had in place for a long time, and they intend to put that. They intend to extradite Julian Assange, and they'll probably even torture him, and maybe worse. But we'll probably never hear from him again. Now, why should we worry about? Why should we care about that? You might be asking, why should we care? Well, the reason is that, firstly, the Fourth Estate is dead. You know, the Fourth Estate is supposed to help our democracy. They're supposed to hold governments' feet to the fire and keep them honest. Well, that hasn't been happening for a very long time. Please excuse I don't have my my tripod here to hold my phone, unfortunately. So I'm going to make this short so you don't have to watch this jiggling up and down. You know, they have, the Fourth Estate is dead, and it's really up to us now to disseminate information. There is no, apart from independent journalists around the world, apart from WikiLeaks, and a few news sources that are independent, like the Real News Network, there really isn't, and the Empire Files, Mint Press News, the Black Agenda Report. There are a few, but they don't have the coverage that and the Jimmy Dore Show. I shouldn't forget the Jimmy Dore Show. They're very good as well. I'll put them in the information section. So apart from those, there's really not a whole lot happening to get real information out to people anymore. It's just a whole lot of propaganda now, and has been for some time. So we can't rely on the mainstream media anymore. So that's the first reason we should support Assange, because WikiLeaks hasn't released anything that is false, as far as I'm aware. And whether you like WikiLeaks or not, whether you like Julian Assange or not, is really irrelevant in this case. And I please ask you to hold that in your mind when you watch this, or when you're thinking about, oh, why should I support him? I don't like him, or whatever the case, whatever you think. If you've gotten information from the mainstream press, you have you've received propaganda, and you should just discount that and start reading some real information. So, and that's the ones that I've mentioned, and also the Empire Files with Abby Martin as a host. So there's that, and then the second reason you should support Assange is because if they can do that to one person, like an Australian citizen, which Assange is, I'm an Australian citizen. If you're an Australian citizen, or any citizen globally, your government can do that to you. If you don't speak out for the rights of one individual, for the rights of groups of individuals, like the Palestinians, eventually it's going to come around to you. Eventually you're going to be the target. You know that saying, first they came for the labor movement, next they came for this and that. They came for different groups, and then the next thing they'll come for you. That's sort of a Holocaust quote from somebody during the Holocaust. Eventually, injustice will visit you, and it will probably be knocking down your door, smashing down your door. So that's the second reason. These are all selfish reasons, of course. This reason is a selfish reason, thinking about ourselves. The third, but it's something that's going to happen. If you don't push against injustice anywhere, you are going to have that injustice visited upon you. So the third reason to support Assange is, and if you're an Australian citizen, you should care, because they've just taken away his passport, just like that, for his crime of being a journalist. That's the only crime that Julian Assange has committed, in quotes. The crime of being a journalist. And this is what the Australian government and all the different politicians are all useless in this regard. Except for Scott Ludlam. I'm not sure if he still isn't in the Green Party anymore, but I don't know of any Australian politician who is speaking out on behalf of Julian Assange, and that is an absolute disgrace. Absolutely a disgrace. And that gives you an idea of how much of a US lackey the Australian government is. It's just a little satellite part of the US empire. So that's the third reason. If you're an Australian citizen, you can be abandoned just like that, just like they've done to Julian Assange without any cause or reason. If the US empire in the future decides that you are a problem, then they can, for whatever reason, or even if the Australian government decides you're a problem, you're interfering with their corruption or whatever, eventually all this will swing round to you. It's just like algae on a pond. It starts off very slowly, and then the next thing you know, it's all over the pond. So that's how fascism starts. So the fourth reason we have to support Assange is because he's a human being. And we're all human beings. We all are part of a global community, and we need to stop thinking about ourselves in terms of, borders and boundaries, like artificial national boundaries. These are artificial national boundaries which actually keep us divided in a way. We're all human, sentient beings, and we should support every human sentient being on the planet, including non-human sentient beings. I'm vegan, so that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Please consider going vegan, because justice is not exclusive. So I'll leave a link to how you can go vegan, and please watch my other live streams to find out why it's so important, like the recent one I did about statistics in relation to our use of non-human animals. Okay, so, and if you're watching this from another location, my username is @vegan, VEGANTROVE on YouTube. Okay, so anyway, there are really good reasons, what I've listed, to support this man who has been in the Ecuadorian embassy now for at least it's 6 years now. He's been cut off from his family. He has children. He has been cut off from having outside exercise, from human relationships, except those that are able to visit him. He's basically a political prisoner. And people say, oh, well, he can just walk outside the embassy. To say that is ignorant at best. At worst, it's cynical, and you don't really understand what on earth you're talking about. And one day, this sort of creeping fascism that's happening worldwide in Western governments is going to visit you. So to have that attitude, you're actually eventually going to be one of the victims, just like Assange. If you don't care about Assange, if you don't care about these kinds of things, then you don't care about yourself, basically. You don't care about your own value, because if you don't care about him, if you don't care about the likes of, say, Chelsea Manning, when Chelsea Manning was in prison, and was going to be in prison for 35 years. If you don't care about these things, then you don't care about yourself, because as I said, these things will visit you, that's right, you, will visit you eventually, and it's coming round to you. The West is starting to experience the kinds of nonsense that we've put on other countries now, invading them for resources and hegemony. Western imperialism and white supremacy has been visiting countries all over the world, and now it's coming back. This sort of behavior is coming back into our own countries. The sorts of things that they get away with overseas in these imperialist ventures are what they will eventually visit on Australian citizens, US citizens, and they're doing so right now. They start with minority groups and then they eventually come around to you. If you think you're valuable because you're white, you're mistaken. Okay, so anyway, these are all reasons, we need to wake up, because fascism is really fascism, and that's what's happening. The fourth estate is dead. It's absolutely dead. And it's up to the global community, people just like you and me, to use social media. And even though social media is appalling in that its algorithms and its censorship is tremendous on social media, but we need to do what we can in that regard to disseminate information. If we don't disseminate information from news sources like WikiLeaks and all these independent news people, the Mint Press News, the Real News Network, the Empire Files with Abby Martin, Media Roots Radio, Black Agenda Report, Black Alliance for Peace, all these different independent news sources, then we're basically cutting our own throats. If you don't disseminate independent, real news, not news that promotes regime change, like unfortunately Democracy Now! Has done in recent times, we have to do our best to support independent news and disseminate information. Hi, Tristan. So, I please urge you, if you care about real democracy, I'm not talking about the pretend democracy that the United States says it has, and which it's just an oligarchy. And we don't really have much of a democracy here in Australia either. It's gradually slipping away because of the Murdoch press and because politicians are US lackeys. But we have to do what we can. Otherwise, we may as well roll over and die, because the oligarchs, people in power, won't stop until they have, captured all the power that they need over us, and we will eventually just be serfs. You think that's an exaggeration? No, this is how this sort of thing starts. It started like this, and you create social inequality, and then you have people divided against one another. This is what empires have done for a long time. They've picked out minority groups and turned people against them, and everybody, while they're focusing on these minority groups, like right now asylum seekers, and while they're vilifying them, the powers that be are just doing whatever the hell they want. You see, they distract us all with the bread and circuses, and they go ahead and they secure more and more power until eventually we'll just be serfs and slaves. Basically, that's how it's going to go. So until you realize that, no, this isn't being dramatic. This isn't hyperbole. This is real. It is totally real. Okay, so if you don't realize that this is happening, then you haven't been paying attention, or you've been watching mainstream media, or you've been watching too many cat videos. I love cats, but that's not going to. I love cats very much as a vegan, but you've been watching too much fluff on your device, and you need to get out in the streets and start doing something. Okay, so anyway, this is pretty much all I wanted to say. And I really invite you to check out that video. I'll say it again. This live stream, which had a number of people on it, Chris Hedges and Ray McGovern. They've been doing this for. This is the second one I've seen. I've missed some of the others, but the actual YouTube channel is Suzi 3D. Suzi, SUZI 3D. And the name of the live stream today is #Unity4J. That's Unity number 4, and then J for Julian. So Unity for J. and then emergency public meeting and unveiling of nonviolent digital action plan. So, and in the description, it says, in the description it says, international minds are reporting the WikiLeaks editor-in-chief may imminently be handed by Ecuador to UK authorities. And it gives a link there. It says, if such event occurs, it presents an immediate threat to Assange's human rights, asylum rights, liberty, and to press freedoms. It would also be in direct contravention of the rulings of the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, both of which have found in his favour. See, and the Australian government just ignore that. The hashtag Unity4J movement in support of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks is holding an emergency public meeting to unveil a plan for mass nonviolent action to demand freedom for the journalist and publisher. High-profile supporters of Julian Assange will be in attendance and unveil the new strategy. Unity4J originated from an unplanned but timely response to injustice when Julian Assange internet access and visitation rights were abruptly taken away and swiftly grew into high-profile monthly online vigils endorsed by Chris Hedges, George Galloway, Ray McGovern, Bill Binney, and Daniel Ellsberg, among many other noteworthy figures. It is with the same sense of urgency and duty to take a public stand against oppression that we are organising this Saturday to resist the escalated violations of Julian's basic rights. Every time we witness an injustice and do not act, we train our character to be passive passive in its presence, and thereby eventually lose all ability to defend ourselves and those we love. And that's a quote from Julian Assange, which is a great quote, really. So anyway, it suggests spreading the word, and the live stream is also accessible at unity4j.com/stream, S-T-R-E-A-M. So unity4j.com stream, /stream. Okay, so the official website is unity4j.com. So, and it has a Twitter site too, at Unity4J. Okay, so that's a really, really important thing that we have to do. I don't know, I really hope that Australians are waking up to what's going on. I think that, you know, our Australian government is so inept. It doesn't, in fact, I don't know, when you raise, recently I was at a meeting with a politician, actually, and she's really quite good, Carol Brown from the ALP. And I was just talking to her, chatting privately. There's nothing I can say, nothing that I'm going to say that's, you know, too private, but we were talking just yesterday, and she's actually aware of, you know, I was talking about the anti-war movement. You know, where is it, and why is Australia engaged in all these dreadful imperialist wars with the United States? You know, this is something that we don't really get to, we don't really hear from politicians. They don't sort of even talk about these numerous wars we're engaged in, completely against international law. And none of these countries invaded the United States, and yet we're just, as an Australian country, as Australia, we're just dragged into these horrific wars that are killing millions of brown people and devastating their homes. I mean, it's outrageous. There's no, where is the discussion about this? It's appalling. So, you know, this is something we, as citizens, you know, I mean, one of the things that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks have revealed, and they revealed it through Chelsea Manning, and she went to prison because of it, and was going to go to prison for 35 years, but came out in 7, but she had a terribly torturous time in there. They tortured her and everything. And she's still suffering mentally from this. She released the collateral murder video, and if you haven't seen that, it's appalling. I can't even, it literally makes my stomach turn. I get so upset if I see that collateral murder video. literally mowing people down from helicopters. So, but that is an everyday occurrence in Iraq and other places. This is an everyday occurrence that U.S. empire does, as well as droning people and incinerating people through drones. And the U.S. empire is directly participating in the genocide in Yemen. Do you see the dead fourth estate talking about that? No. This is why we need, you and I and all global citizens have to become what the fourth estate is no longer. We have to disseminate information from real news, from real independent news sources. If we don't, then basically any semblance of democracy is dead. Any semblance. If we're not doing it, the fourth estate is dead, and it's not doing it at all. So we have to be the ones now. We are the ones we've been waiting for, as the saying goes. I don't know. I think a lot of Australians are asleep. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like that. And we're just a vassal state, as you say, Tristan, we're just a vassal state of empire, US empire. So, we have to change that. This is not the Australia. I mean, Australia's always had problems, but, when we had people like Gough Whitlam, who was against this sort of thing, where are the Gough Whitlams of today? Where are the Jeremy Corbyns of today? You see, if we don't have those people in Australia, then we have to be those. We shouldn't be relying on leaders anyway. We shouldn't be putting people on pedestals. We should be doing grassroots, nonviolent action is where it's at. It's always been where it's at. It's always what has changed things. And if you ever have violent revolution, you end up with the same kinds of people in power, like what happened with the French Revolution. They may have got rid of a bunch of upper, aristocrats, and then they were replaced with violent people. The violent revolution thing doesn't really work, and we don't want that. When you start using violence, it's addictive, and you end up corrupting yourself. Yes, and exactly. Gough Whitlam, when he was removed, and this is something a lot of Australians don't know, the CIA actually admitted to helping remove Gough Whitlam. So, the United States, as well as meddling in 81 different countries since between 1946 to 2000, and it's ongoing. There's been a number since then, overthrowing democratically elected governments, and 81 governments they've meddled in, and they've either successfully overthrown them or attempted to. And Australia has been one of those, and they successfully, the CIA has admitted to participating in the overthrowing of the current government in 1975, the Gough Whitlam government. And he was a democratic socialist, and he was great for the country, and that wasn't okay with US empire. So it's been going on for a very long time. So, we should have an axe to grind for that, because now we have neoliberalism. It's been going on for at least 40 years. And now social inequality is becoming more and more in Australia. Asylum seekers and all being vilified. Racism is increasing. And this is what happens when there's social inequality. So, neoliberalism needs to end, and we need to start to get out from behind our devices and do something. We need to do something. If we don't do something, then we may as well just hand ourselves over and just, be serfs. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to say, but please, that saying, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Keep that in your mind, because that's absolutely true. And if we don't speak out for Julian Assange, then we are basically, in a totally selfish way, we are sabotaging our own freedoms, our own liberties, and we're helping the oligarchs basically secure whatever they want, secure all the resources, and have full spectrum dominance, and that's what they want. So we have to ask ourselves, what kind of a planet do we want to live on? Do we want to live on a planet where oligarchs are basically ruling us? Or do we want to have some sort of real life for ourselves? And do we also believe that other people in other countries are part of the global community, and we need to stop looking at them as just people over there? We need to stop otherizing people. We need to stop otherizing non-human animals. That's why I'm vegan. But we need to stop otherizing people from other countries just because they're different. And a lot of this is based on, otherization, a lot of this stuff that's happening today. Anyway, thanks, Tristan, for your kind words. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go now. I said that before, but I really am. So please check out that Unity for Assange hashtag and see what you can do to help bring about the safe release of Julian Assange from the Ecuadorian embassy. He is completely cut off now from everything, except his lawyer can see him, from what I understand. But everything else has been taken away from him: his internet access, his phone access, having visitors. He cannot see his family. He hasn't been able to see them for years. He's basically complete. Even solitary confinement prisoners get 1 hour's walk in most countries, a 1 hour walk around in the sun. And he hasn't had that for 6 years. And now he's completely cut off. It's absolute torture, psychological torture. He needs to go to hospital because he's not well. And they're trying to kill him. They've been trying to kill him by keeping him in this embassy for that time, because, they will throw away the key if he's extradited to the United States. They will throw away the key and they'll make sure they torture him. I mean, they've even said he'll be eating cat food. They even said that in private emails, I think, that were exposed by, I don't know if it's WikiLeaks, some sort of a email just from somebody in that about that issue. They basically said, implied that he'll be sort of a, something about rape and something about eating cat food. It was just awful. So anyway, that gives you a little idea of what they have in store for him. So if you care about yourself, if you care about justice, you must support Assange and do what you can. Even if you don't like him, that's irrelevant. Even if you don't like him, it's irrelevant, okay? So get that out of your head. It's a human rights issue. We're all a global community. Do what you can, okay? All right. Thanks for listening. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. You can please subscribe to my channel if you wish to, and make sure you click the notifications bell. It's at Vegan Trove on YouTube. Okay. Thanks so much for watching. Peace.